Udachi, that's a name that is still feared even today. This ship has been around for nearly 3 years, having dropped in May of 2020. Man, time flies. She has returned for global XP for the first time after these 3 years, so those of you who do not have her and have always wanted her, it's in the store. Now's your time. There are a ton of global XP ships available and vying for your attention, so if you are curious about other GXP ships, check out my video on that in the description below. As for Yudachi though, the question we should ask is, has this ship been power crept or not? The short answer is hell yes. I'll break down why I think so a little later, but still this could be a nice addition and worth bringing to your port. The game in the background will show that this ship still has what it takes to be a royal pain even in 2023. So what is so special about Yudachi and why has she been feared all of these years? For starters, it has insane concealment. The most concealed tier 7 DD, I believe, with a 6.3 kilometer base detection rating. It has very powerful torpedoes with a torpedo reload booster. You don't have to give up your smokescreen, you just get a reload booster. If you were to buy her, I would recommend setting her up with improved accuracy, acceleration, concealment, and torpedo reload. Tanaka is a solid choice for both free-to-play and premium players alike, and it's usually my go-to. With a build centered around torpedoes, notice I still take perceptives, that's just my personal preference, and in this game it actually helps me scoop up the, well, foreshadowing here, scoop up the Kraken. I like to know where the nearest DD is, even if it is just to know where to run away from in a torpedo boat. But you could of course use Torpedo Safari if you're pretty confident in your DD abilities. Bay and Azerlane Atago, those are my go-to inspirations for concealment and for torpedo concealment. That would make the torpedoes harder to dodge and avoid. Yudachi also has an alternative torpedo armament. You can equip the F2 torpedoes. They increase the damage, the torp speed, but you're going to lose 3 kilometers off of your range. You can decide if that's worth it for you or not. Personally, I just run the stock torpedoes. Stats wise, let's see how the old girl is now, 3 years later. Compared to other tier 7 DDs, the Udachi is very, very squishy. You have to be careful. Look at these stock HP pool numbers, 13,200. A point could be made for using Billy Sims as one of your inspirations to add a couple thousand HP, and you might say, well, Derka, why? This ship should never get spotted, and like the game in the background, we don't get spotted unless we want to, and that is true, but tier 7 matches have CVs in them quite a lot. I would say we had them in about 70% of our matches last night, and while Yudachi has one of the lowest detection by air ratings, it is still very likely you will be hunted and spotted by CVs, and there's not really much you can do about it, so a couple thousand extra health could help. Moving on to the guns though, if you are going full torp build, the guns aren't going to wow you. DPM wise, it doesn't get much worse than Yudachi actually, but at least you have a higher fire chance that can be pretty useful against larger ships to set the occasional fire here or there, and the HE shells hit very hard, 2150 per shell, but with the poor reload time of 6.8 seconds, they're really only going to be for defense, not much of an offensive weapon. The torpedoes, that's where it's at. It's really what Yudachi is all about, and let's kind of deep dive into them. They'll deal around 21,000 damage with Tanaka per warhead, so they hit hard. These long lance torpedoes seem to have a high probability of flooding as well, but that information isn't readily available to us World of Warships guys, so I don't know that 100%, but they seem to cause lots of floods. The torps are pretty quick, 67 knots, and they reload fast, 100 seconds stock. That drops down to about 73 seconds with my Tanaka build. And don't forget that win button, the torpedo reload booster. It's going to come in handy. Once per match, you can choose to activate the booster and send a second salvo of 8 torpedoes into your unsuspecting enemies. And at the beginning of this match, it was pretty darn effective against the Atlantico and the Brandenburger. Now, the problem with IJN torpedoes, and this is usually always the case, it's their detection in the water. Yudachi is no different. She has a stock 1700 meter detection range for her torpedoes. Enemies should have nearly 10 seconds to react to them, so it gives them a decent amount of time to dodge. That's why I'm using Azerlane Atago, just to make them a little bit more stealthy to increase my odds of hitting a ship. The AA, it's atrocious. You should probably just inactivate it immediately at the start of a match and don't bother turning it back on again. It'll likely just give away your position to enemy squadron, so just forget about it. If a CV focuses you, just dodge. Let me tell you, that seemed to happen quite a bit in my games. This game was really the exception. Oh man, we had a 28 base, we had a 31 base, and then we had this game, which was 3500 base. But a lot of the games I played, wow, got focused hard by CVs, and it was no fun at all. You just don't have a lot you can do about it. Smoke up, go hide behind your teammates, run, and have fun. Moving on though, the ship's maneuverability. I feel like it's usually a high point with IJN ships and DDs, but Udachi, it is and it isn't. See, the top speed is going to leave a little bit to be desired. 35 knots base. It's jointly tied for the second worst at tier 7 as for DDs. Only the Akazuki is slower. You do have a speed boost consumable, 8% for 2 minutes, but still, you're going to struggle getting around the map. Now, if you can get past the slow speed, you'll enjoy Yudachi's turn circle and rudder shift. They are elite among tier 7 DDs, and it makes this ship feel very nimble. The last statistic you would care about is the concealment, which, like I mentioned, is the best in class as I have it figured in this game. Right now, it's sitting at 5.1 kilometers, so that's not too shabby. Now, good or bad, power crept or not, I would say that I don't traditionally enjoy torpedo boats as a playstyle. I see them as one-trick ponies. That one trick is launching torpedoes at large capital ships that are going to have a hard time evading them. Cruisers, other DDs, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot against them, and especially not aircraft carriers like I mentioned. You don't have the means to directly engage other destroyers with your guns, with your low health and your DPM. It's almost always going to be a losing proposition. So you're really at the mercy of your teammates when it comes to dealing with enemy gunboats, hybrid DDs, and even other torpedo boats. As this game shows, we really struggled killing some Asachios, even though I had the drop on them. And Yudachi is a better gunfighter than Asachio. So I preface my opinion of this ship by saying that. Now, is she still good in 2023? Oh yeah, for sure. Albeit a little bit power crept in my opinion. The largest offender for power creep, well, that would be the Sommers CE. Sommers came to the game in April of 2022, and we all know how that went and how quickly it got designated the CE version, which supposedly meant Collector's Edition, and basically meant we were never going to get access to that ship again. If you got her for the campaign, that's great. She's not coming back because the ship is way too good. Sommers has more health, more torpedoes, better guns, and better speed. Udachi has a couple better stats, yes, but overall, a Sommers CE will mop the floor with Udachi game after game. That's not the only DD on my offender list, though. A lot of other destroyers have grown more powerful, while Udachi has stayed the same. Let's look at Fletcher. A long time ago, it had its gun characteristics buffed. The shells fly faster now, they deal more damage. Luffen Task, Caprice, ZF6, they got gun reload boosters. Shenyang got buffed. The Black's radar got buffed, Tashkent got buffed, and we could go on and on and on. So when the ship came out, it was very, very powerful, very, very scary. Things have changed now. Let's talk about the direct hunters of Yudachi. There are some really powerful cruisers in the game now. Some notable cruisers that were not in the game when Yudachi dropped, but are now. How about Ochakov, Mines, either Wichita, Suzuya, Weimar. There's some big fish out there hunting you, and it's not as safe as it used to be for Udachi, say, when this ship dropped. And also, like mentioned, CVs, they're a huge threat to this ship. They were not here when this boat dropped. So if a CV focuses you, your low top speed, your small HP pool, and your lack of AA leaves you pretty much at their mercy. So I said all that. It's not very flattering about Udachi. I still think this is a strong ship and quite dangerous in the right hands. The torpedoes are a scary threat, and the reload booster lets you chunk down an amazing 170k Torp Alpha twice over in a short amount of time. Plus the stealth helps a lot when slinking around the map. If I were picking from the whole list of GXP destroyers though, I would still probably pick the Friesland or the Loyang. I think they're still available over the Udachi, but Yudachi is still a very good destroyer if you enjoy torpedo boats. It's just not as scary as it used to be, and I think the stigma of it will kind of go away now that she's going to become more common and be out on the open water more. Anyways, that's all I have to say about that. Leave me a comment down below on what your thoughts are about this ship returning. I guess I don't see it as such a big deal as I thought once I started playing her more. and comparing her to all of the new additions to the game 3 years later. I do imagine the battle impact of Yudachi really isn't that huge nowadays, but we shall see. Leave me a like if this video provided any value to you. I would appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe for future videos so you don't miss anything coming up, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.